This is Lauren.
This is Trey.
And this
is the Partnership Podcast. Yeah, stability, security, abundance. I think that's what like the sales tag is for in relationship. Ooh. You have all those things. So if you can have all those things being single, gorgeous.
It's hard to state what we want because it might mean rejection. It might mean losing the thing that we were hoping to gain, even if that thing is sex.
Yeah, hold that thought, yeah.
And we restarted the do you remember all of that?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we were rolling. It was like a really good...
It was a good pod.
It was a really good pod.
We're recording on a Friday because we recorded on a Wednesday and I didn't hit the record button on the microphones.
Y'all won't know any difference because it's going to be put out at the same time, but...
She was so sweet about it where she was like, no big deal. And I was like, oh fuck, I just wasted an hour of our time. And then we have to do this again. Like, I wouldn't have been as gracious. Huh. What's that about? Where it's like, I would have been frustrated with you.
Yeah, talk about it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, you gave me all the grace in the world, which I don't feel like I deserved.
Well, it didn't even, I literally didn't care.
No.
Like, it wasn't even a gift. Like, it was not extending grace to you. You totally didn't mean to do that. I had a fantastic conversation with you. It literally was like, I am so interested these days, and maybe this is just where I was. I am so interested when the universe does something like that. Mm-hmm. Like, I recorded a voice memo and sent it to somebody the other day, and then I recorded in the evening, it didn't send till the morning. And I was like, did that person need sleep and not to think on this thing that I had sent them about? It wasn't even bad, like, I'm just interested. I'm far more curious.
Great.
Like, why? That must have not needed to go out.
Okay. Great.
Right?
Yeah, good for you. I want some more of what you got, of like going with the flow. I want some more of that.
Yeah, I do want, it's not something I try to do, like it is not something. So please don't I don't deserve any gold stars because I don't feel like I've done anything to work on that.
See, I think you get a gold star where like I get all the grace in the world.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For like a fuck up, like an easily avoidable fuck up, you give me a lot of grace. Yeah, where I give a lot less grace to myself than other people. And again, like if it were reversed, I'd be frustrated. I'd have to work through frustration at you.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
No, you totally would have.
Yeah.
Which, it's so interesting. This has been a theme of my week with clients. This idea that solo life is a lot easier. Let's just start, right? Like it is. And what's so neat is while partnership can show us pieces of ourselves that we would have rather not looked at, partnership can also literally transform us.
Sure.
And if we want it to. If we want to see ourselves reflected in another and grow and become and transform, a partnership really can help us do that. And it's wild. It can help us heal.
Hyper independence for me, I think, is easier, but it's not preferred.
Mm-hmm. We were talking about how oftentimes romantic, long-term partnership is the first thing to mimic our families of origin, like that familial existence. Uh-huh. And so even though it's different, and even though the attachment relationship is different, we say it on this podcast all the time, right? I am a person in a female body. Your body existed in a home with another female body that was your mother, right? So oftentimes we project onto one another. I do it with you being, right? And you're like, I'm not your dad. And I'm like, that's right. You're not my dad. You're not my dad. And we could be annoyed. We could be like, ugh, I hate that partnership. Or we could be like, how cool that we could repattern.
Yeah.
How cool that this life is giving us the opportunity to go back in time and heal those wounds.
Yeah, that's interesting. It was better when she wasn't around. Like I raised myself. She was full time, and but it was better. It was less chaotic when she wasn't around. And I kind of carry that. I never thought I was going to get married for that reason. Where when I was dating, it's just better to be casual.
I think that is a totally wise safety-seeking strategy.
Yeah, not have to rely on anyone and then not have to be relied upon. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, so y'all, partnership's cool. Have a great day. Enjoy. Your life, that's the podcast. No, just kidding. I did want to talk about, are you still up to talk about the subject that we tried to talk about? Because I do think this is fascinating. And you and I have even continued the conversation. And that's why I also was like, I'm curious to see between the non-airable podcast and now we've continued to talk about the subject. We even had a juicy conversation kind of about it last night.
Sure.
And okay, so here's the premise. I work with a lot of folks who are casually dating. We have a lot of friends who are casually dating. And Trey and I have really been feeling into and through what is the difference between engaging with a person, and this is specifically, let's narrow it down. Heterosexual relationships is what we're talking about now. And we're talking about the old trope of he was so interested in me to get me into bed, right? This end goal of to have sex with me was his real goal. We have been hearing in our vortexes a lot recently this idea of he didn't want an emotional investment, right? He led me on. All he wanted was to fuck me, all these ideas. And Trey and I have been really we've been feeling into this because sex educator here, I spend a lot of time helping my clients differentiate between what they're interested in, recreational sex, which is just good sex for the sake of sex, or relational sex, which is I want that emotional component too. These are all fine. They're totally fine. And I talk about casual sex all the time. And with my clients, I always, because they're my clients, am encouraging and inviting conversations around what are you interested in providing to another sex partner, and get clear on what they're interested in providing for you too. But a lot of times people aren't having these conversations. And so Trey has a far more extensive sex repertoire and a dating repertoire than I do. So I've been picking your brain a lot about this. And I say to him often, did women fall in love with you when you were dating multiple women at the same time? And were women often ever confused about what's going on here? Like, what is going on here? Because we have these incredibly connected dates and you take me out and you invest in me and then we have sex and then I don't hear from you for a few weeks until you want to have sex again. Have you ever heard that type of feedback? So I would love to go back to, and what we did last time, and I'd love to do it again, is we talked about Trey in 20s and then we talked about Trey in 30s.
Sure.
And I'd like to talk about some of those experiences.
In my 20s, I had very low confidence in myself. I didn't really have any tools. I think I attracted women that had low confidence as well, I want to say. In my 30s, it reversed where I went out and I got help, and I gained more confidence in being kind of a centered man. That's always a work in progress, but it really started to click in my 30s, not my 20s. Yeah.
Tell the story about girl you knew in high school.
Yeah, there was a girl I knew in high school that was interested in me, and we dated for a little bit, and I think I was 18 when we met, and we dated 18, 19, 20, and she was really interested in me, and I was never really that into her, but we did sleep together. And the sex was never very good.
What did the sex provide you with, though?
I think sex for sex sake. Like being an 18, 19, 20-year-old guy who's trying to figure it out, who's really unsure of himself. Maybe reassurance or practice or this feels good. I don't know.
Yeah. You know, we talk on here all the time that often when we're wanting sex, we're wanting connection or pleasure or the feeling of feeling wanted and desired or an escape or a break from reality. Was it any of those things?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
And I want everyone to hear, there's nothing wrong with wanting sex. And there's nothing wrong with how we do things either. It's not a part of my ethic to be like, that was bad, right? I do think, was she ever sad? Do you remember any instances? What do you remember? Because I think this is really good for our audience to hear, is that, yeah.
We had a date one time and it got where she goes, I feel mistreated. I feel like you only want this. Yeah, this is actually perfect. Where it's I feel like you only want sex. You don't want a committed relationship. And I was like, yeah, I never wanted that, but I've said that to you in the past. And I think I dated another girl where we were like boyfriend and girlfriend very briefly. Again, this is 19. I was a child. And she goes, why didn't you want to like be boyfriend and girlfriend with me? And I didn't really know how to answer that. Mm-hmm. And I remember like we were going to bed because she stayed over for the night or something like that, where it's you can't like escape. And I remember in the dark her saying, I love you.
Oh, honey.
And there was nothing. I said nothing back. I remember that very vividly.
I wish we could have her in the room.
Well, that makes one of us.
God, we're so untooled, aren't we?
As children,
yeah,
unless we have mentors,
yeah,
or unless like nowadays where we can actually go seek this information out on the internet or through audiobooks, yeah. I didn't have any like relationship models that
we're like, Trey, before you get into a bed with a woman, make sure she's clear on what you're interested in providing for her.
My dad, we never had that conversation. Mom, she was open about sex at a very young age, but about like protection and this is a penis, this is a vagina. It was almost like from a textbook, but like relational advice, I didn't have any. So I fucked up.
Yeah.
And
Ooh, can you speak to that? How do you think now, with the wisdom that you have now at 40?
Sure.
How would that instance, in what way did you fuck up? Because I think what is so cool about growing is then we can look back and go, oh, this is how I fucked up. This is how I hurt her.
Sharing what I want, what my wants, needs, and desires are, and then welcoming her to share her wants, needs, and desires, and also having the foresight to where if I don't think it's very truthful, because it's hard to share.
Yes.
So if I don't think it's truthful, to actually set a boundary versus being a horny teenager. And then ultimately hurting someone because I can't meet them on that level of like commitment and love.
It's wild. I think
taking care of the other person. Because I didn't know how to take care of myself. If you don't know how to take care of yourself, how are you expected to take care of other people? Or, I mean, in that realm,
right?
I could caretake. I just didn't know what I was fucking doing in a romantic, intimate, sexual space. It was like it was maybe the second girl I've ever been with too, like physically, romantically, or third, yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
I would have loved to have the tools and really I would have loved to have been able to ask questions and then state maybe boundaries, more importantly.
And what are some of the risks of doing that, though?
That you'll offend the other person.
Uh-huh.
That you won't ultimately get what you want. I think that's the biggest risk.
I do too. That's what I was wondering if you would say.
I won't get what I want.
Yep. Which was, in that moment,
sex or intimacy or connection or, yeah.
It's fucking risky.
It's fucking risky. Especially if you're in the opposite of abundance, scarcity mindset. Especially if you're in a scarcity mindset, it's risky. Yeah.
Right? There's this, I don't know when I'll get this again. Right? This is a body who's available to me.
Correct.
Do you think there was ever intentional, and it's okay, there's no judgment for me. Do you think there was ever intentional leading on, like leading her to believe that you were more emotionally invested than you were?
Maybe.
Okay. I think what's really interesting from my vantage point now is when I talk about those circles of sexuality, one of them is sexualization. And the definition of sexualization is the use of sex to control or manipulate another. And we all do it. We don't talk about this enough, but we all do it. I've done it. And I'll speak from my experience, but I also see this with a lot of people in female bodies who are interested in people with penises. I've thought, oh, my sex will win him over. My sex will show him, and my charisma I know he doesn't want a long-term emotional investment. I know he's not interested in dating. He said that before with like other people, but not with me.
Okay.
That's using sex to control or manipulate another, and we just need to call it what it was. I think that men do it too.
They'll usually do it with effort.
Mm-hmm.
The illusion of effort, or the illusion of action, where I'll do this, this, and this, and this, and win this woman over. I'll do all these things. I'll call, I'll text, I'll follow up. Hey, how was your morning?
Right.
Extravagant things that maybe I can't afford, or I'll buy shit that I don't want to impress.
Right.
Men will do it with resources.
Yeah, yeah.
Or their effort.
And I think their end goal is often sex.
Possession.
Yeah.
Possession. Now I have this prize. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
So women will often do it with what, their bodies or their femininity,
Yeah,
or their actual
please
sex,
hear
or their
me, female-bodied
seductiveness.
audience. Yeah, I think we'll do it. It's subconscious, and this is why it's just fun to study. We will do it subconsciously. We will withhold sex or use sex, right?
Yeah.
We'll use it as like this temptress type
Sure.
of narrative. And I've done it so many times. Like, if I can just keep him right here, he's interested in me. I get that, like the flirty. The moment he's had me, it's done.
Okay.
And in my slut era, that was a fascinating thing to watch. And now I have so many more tools to be like, whoa, look what I was doing, but also look what he was doing. And none of us had the education to know what we were really doing because it was too risky to state what we really wanted. Because that might mean that we don't get to have them at all because they're not actually what's meant for us.
When did you get clear on what you really wanted?
When someone didn't provide me what I really wanted. And this is kind of the theme that's been going on, right? Is like, I see many of my clients frustrated because men keep, quote, failing them. And I'm like, sure. But also, what if that's just not something he's interested in providing? And I just had this really clear moment of, that person that I've just slept with provided me with some of the things I was wanting. Like, I got a taste of it, like a really good taste. But then they were not interested in the emotional components. They were not interested in partnership components. And I could tell. I could just really tell. They hadn't treated me poorly, but they were not treating me great.
Okay.
And I stumbled into journals, yesterday? The day
Yeah.
before? Yesterday. This is why I also think that's fascinating, our podcast and record. There's literally a journal behind me. Let's see if I can flip open to it. Where it's basically like, Lauren, I never want you to forget what you just had. And you deserve that and so much more. Now, those pieces that you are still wanting, go find him. Because I think he's out there. Because if you just got a taste of this piece, there's got to be a person who has the rest too.
Do you invite your people, that the question or the statement really of this person is failing me, or I'm going on these dates and these men or people are failing me, could that statement be engineered into a question and then reflected back onto yourself, where it's like, where am I failing myself?
Oh, what do you really want? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that part of your work where it's like, okay, that's valid, what you just said, let's reverse it? Mm-hmm. What does that do to your people?
It's a mind fuck. It's beautiful.
Why?
Because we haven't been taught to do that. We haven't been taught, this is what to get clear on our needs, wants, and desires.
Does the ego get in the way?
Yeah, because we prefer to blame
Okay. Yeah.
than to get curious about our domain. I love how Dr. Betty Martin says that we have a right to and a responsibility for that which is in our domain, right? I love the right, Because it's like, these are my rights, right? You're failing me. These are my rights. And it's like, you also have a responsibility to protect those limits,
Okay.
right? You have a responsibility to know what it is that you want and declare it up front. And yes, it's riskier because then we might not get to intertwine our bodies with the person. And I'd argue we all have a joint responsibility there No, yeah. Do I think that some men lead women on? Yeah.
Sure.
By offering them a little bit of emotional connection because they have learned through society, through media, through sexual scripts that they've seen around them, that that's what you do to get a woman into bed. Sure. But I also, if that's all they were really truly interested, if that was their end goal, it's not necessarily a bad end goal. If no sexual coercion was present, if no harm was present, no violence or discrimination was present, if it was a joint pleasurable encounter.
I've dated 2 women where they said, "Oh, I only have sex with boyfriends. Like I only have sex with guys that I'm like going steady with, and like this is a committed boyfriend relationship."
Amazing.
I go, "Great, great,
amazing."
We didn't go out on another date again.
No,
either one of them.
Why?
Because I wasn't interested in providing that.
Yeah. Was it offensive when they said that?
No.
Was it disappointing?
Yes.
Why?
The same reason where I don't believe in you should have sex with a person for the first time on your wedding night.
Okay.
It's just my personal philosophy that sexual chemistry needs to be kind of established, or it needs to be tried out.
Great.
Before being in a committed relationship, in
For
my opinion.
you. Yeah.
For me.
And
for me. Yes.
I would say for those women, I'm proud of them for knowing that they need a trusting container first.
Correct.
All of those are valid.
Yeah.
They're beautiful. And for a woman to know herself well enough to know, no, I need the security of this is okay. Like,
how do women prevent getting led on? Or what red flags should they look for if they are suspicious that they're being led on just to be maybe slept with, and then a man moves on?
Yeah. Well, I think first I invite women to do their own discovery around their own views of sex, their own views of women who sleep with a guy for one night and then never see him again. Do they have permission to be that too? Do they have permission to have really great hot sex and that's it? There's a lot of internalized misogyny inside of women ourselves. We slut shame ourselves and other women.
I think you guys are the worst at it, right?
It's so mean.
Where I think you guys are mean to each other a lot more than we're mean to you.
No, we're mean to other women.
Uh-huh.
And it's a wild phenomenon, but it's still happening all the time. We are still, we've talked about this before, that, biologically, evolutionarily, men walk into a room and say, could I take him physically, right? Like, could I outbeat him? And women walk in.
Or out-resource him.
Sure. Yeah, great.
Do I have more money? Do I have more options?
100%.
Do I have better clothes?
Still evolutionarily, women walk into a room and go, can I out-attract her? Would he choose me over her if the lions came? And this winning idea over another woman, still prevalent. I think so. First and foremost, I invite that type of a discussion with self of, do I get to be the type of woman who has a really great night of sex and is like, peace, guy? Do you want to be? If that's not interesting to you, that's fine. But these are the things that I think start way before. What do you really enjoy about sex? What do you want from sex? Connection, feeling wanted and desired, pleasure, an escape from reality. Those are all totally fine things. Also, where else are you getting your human needs met? Those human needs for certainty, uncertainty, significance, love and connection, growth, contribution. Those shouldn't ever be put just upon one person. And so are you diversified? Do you have some great pods of friends? Do you have other people who make you feel sexy, right? Or are you like literally so starving, again, scarcity mindset, that what you're truly looking for is partnership? If you're looking for partnership, that's amazing. But perhaps maybe get clear on these things first. What do you really want? Okay? Because when we're starving, we accept scraps. We just do, all of us, because we're hungry. And that is not wrong. When you are starving and someone says, would you like this scrap? We're like, yes, please. I'm so hungry. Okay. So I would say start with all of that. Get clear on all of that. Then, yeah, you could in your texting and your Snapchats and your apps on your date, whatever. What are you looking for? And if Maya Angelou says, when people tell you who they are, believe them. So if a man says, I'm just something casual, not really interested in a long-term relationship right now, but I'd love to have fun. Is that really okay with you? This idea that we can, and listen, y'all, it is erotic as fuck. It is all through rom-coms. It is all through romance novels. This idea of like, oh, I'll turn him though, is just interesting.
I got one for you. I dated a girl. We went on a couple of dates. We slept together a couple of times. We had a phone call, or we had a talk of like, hey, she asked me, where's this going? And I said, well, I'd love to keep it like this. Like where we see each other like once every other like couple of weeks. And I'd like to keep it like this and fun. And she says, no, that doesn't work for me. And I go, great. Wish you the best. If anything changes, just let me know. I'd love to see you again. About a month later, she called. Was she compromising, or was she settling? Because the sex was good. The dates were good. We had a good time together. There was a good vibe there, but I didn't want to commit to her.
Again, another woman I wish who was in the room. She might have just been hungry.
Yeah.
And you're yummy, so I understand.
Yeah. It ultimately ended really poorly, too.
Did it?
Yeah.
What happened?
We had a date where I went over to her house after she got off of work. She had a really, really bad day at work. We tried to get intimate. She would stop. It was supposed to be she was going to make dinner. She didn't end up making any food. And she finally said, like, why are we doing this? Why couldn't we have gone out? And I go, we totally could have gone out. Were you not comfortable stating it? And that kind of blew her back. There was ultimately a point where she poured the rest of the wine left in her glass, put it to her lips, started drinking it. And she goes, oh, did you want more? And I go, oh, I think it's a really good idea if I leave. Where something happened. And she was not, I think, in a position to host and be with other people. And then she said, please stay. Like, please stay. And I go, I really would feel much more comfortable if I left. And it's like, we can do it another time. And ultimately, when it was time for me to go, she actually started to yell at me. So it became then aggressive, where it was like, get the fuck out then. And there was a point where I was actually kind of concerned for my safety. And that was that. But there was a point where it flipped over. It was just I think she had a really bad day.
Yeah. And I think she needed something
that I couldn't provide.
Yeah.
Which was probably safety.
Yeah.
And security. Or like, hey, it's going to be okay. Huh. And going back, I wish I would have provided that for her in that container, in that space.
Yeah, I know.
It doesn't mean
many more tools.
Doesn't mean we have to be boyfriend and girlfriend
Right.
and husband and wife, and I have to be protector provider. But yeah, going back, wow, I wish I could have kind of shifted of this is going to be a fun, sexy, romantic dinner into she needs some care. She needs to be held, and she needs to process out verbally. Oh yeah, and you know what?
Listening.
Then I bet it would have been, once she felt safe and secure, we could have had like a beautiful, sexy night. Huh. Yeah, instead it took a very odd, scary turn.
Yeah.
She had a cat that she recently got that she didn't even like. Yeah. She's like, you know what? I haven't thought about this in years. I'm going to have my wine. I'm going to have my fucking cat. She may have picked up the cat. And you can get the fuck out. It was something out of a movie.
Was she naked? Like, were you
No,
guys
no, no,
naked
no.
having this
No.
conversation?
Clothes never came off.
Okay.
Clothes never came off. There was never any smushing of body parts. Yeah, it never got there. Well,
okay. Now you're now that we're getting into the story, what did you say? Did she settle? I think she dismissed her own needs, wants, and desires.
Yeah.
That's what I think she did.
Yeah.
Because what'll happen is that, my friends, I've done it.
A blow up?
No, I've made my needs, wants, and desires less important. You've done it too. Okay. Yeah. And then we get into a situation where it will be heard, right? And then we get so angry that someone doesn't see all of us. And we are magnificent creatures who deserve to be seen for all of us. And so we reduce ourselves to less than we are and accept less than we deserve. And then we're confusing to other people. Like, that had to be confusing. But at the same time, we've brought it upon ourselves. I've done it. I have made myself so much less. Right? Remember me crying in your arms when we were newly dating and me being like, I'm afraid you're going to figure out how much I am and that you're going to leave me and be like, you are too much. I spent a lifetime trying to be palatable so that people would keep me around.
Or that your ex-husband would see you. Yeah, you were starving looking for scraps, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? And so when men would give me any attention, it felt good. Yeah. Felt like feeding a starving kid. Yeah. It felt real good. So I get it. And I don't think I actually don't think anybody's walking around doing things intentionally. I think there are scripts swirling everywhere of women, this is how you should behave. Men, this is how you should behave. The one thing that we're all really trying to get is sex, right? And you and I got to go to Wheel of Consent and be like, we have conflated touch and sex. Yeah. We have made sex the end all be all, and it's not. It's really not. It's great. It's great. It's my profession. It's great. But it is not the solution for all things. And to think that sex is going to give us more than what it does is loony. But we do it. It's like that means. Right? I think so many women who still think, but we were so connected in sex, he has to love me, right? And I get it, because many men are far more touchy-feely sweet, especially post-orgasm. And as women, we crave that. We crave the touch and the connection of people, that intimate, that vulnerability. We crave it. It is like our bread, it is like our sweet spot. And that period, the refractory period, when we are all in this oxytocin place, all of us, is very connecting. And so it can be very confusing if you haven't gotten clear on it. Because it's like, well, what do you mean? You orgasmed and then held me in your arms. What do you mean you don't love me? Right? What do you mean you don't care about me? Yeah. And I get it. I get it. Right? And it's tricky. So I think she denied her truest need, wants, and desires. Yeah. To be with you. And I get it. Believe me. Can you tell the audience, we've also been talking about when I think you denied your truest needs, wants, and desires and chose to be in partnership when maybe you were not interested in monogamous partnership. And how did that feel in your body when you were in long-term partnership? And because we were talking about this concept of men not being able to keep their dick in their pants last night.
Yeah.
And then I was like, yeah, well, but what about that time?
Yeah.
And you were like, oh my God.
Yeah, I was dating a girl, and it was convenient to like be boyfriend and girlfriend, and liked her quite a bit. We said I love you, and yeah, ended up like sleeping with somebody else on a work trip. Like I ended up cheating on her. Yeah, I was unfaithful, and we broke up a little bit after that. Yeah. And I didn't tell her. I didn't tell her I was unfaithful either. So I lied to her. Yeah. And ultimately, I wasn't happy in the relationship. And I knew I wasn't for a while. And yeah, that was the last. Yeah, that was the last monogamous relationship I had since then we met. Yeah. And then my solution was, because I didn't want to be a liar, I didn't want to be a manipulator, I didn't want to take advantage of people, I didn't want to sneak around, I didn't want to do those things. So the solution was, oh, then you can't be in committed relationships. And that kind of hardened me as well, where that was the solution.
So fascinating.
Yeah.
If you, with the tools now, just like you were saying that you just had that like aha moment with the woman who'd had the bad work day and the cat and the wine. This is just a crazy image. If you had the tools that you had in that relationship, where then there was the sexual occasion outside of your relationship, yeah, what would you use? Any of your tools? Would you do anything like?
Yeah, I would have said, hey, I'm not happy. I'm not happy in this, and I don't want to hurt you. So we need to have a conversation. And generally, that's the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be. But
It doesn't have to be unless you want to grow together. I didn't want to grow with her, though. So, yeah. Want to either grow separately or, want to grow independently. And that was, okay. That's actually what I needed to get clear on. Is this person like, a long-term lover? And it's, you also don't want to hurt the other person. But, hey, guess what? I started to cheat because I didn't want to hurt the other person. It's like, you're doing it. You're just doing it in the shadows now. So it's like, what the fuck? So, having really hard conversations, especially this is going to be hard. I really don't want to do this. This may really hurt her. This may blow up the relationship. They need to be said. Easier said than done.
Right. And I thank you for saying all of those pieces, because I think we make it seem so trite, right? Like, well, why don't you just talk? It's like, because that's so hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
It's hard for the you in the situation. It's hard for that girlfriend in the situation. It's hard for everybody. And yeah, when we back up though, the conversation that centers, hey, I care about you as a human being and you deserve to be treated with dignity. And so I want to have this conversation that protects your agency. And because you've done nothing wrong. Mm-hmm. And I want to keep it that way, right?
Yeah, this is on me. This is about me.
I work with so many clients who don't want to get out of they know they want to be out of the relationship, but they don't want to hurt the other person. So they're just waiting for the shoe to drop. They're waiting for the thing that makes the other person the villain.
Yeah, what the fuck? Yeah, it's twisted.
Because a villain, we can leave, and then we can have some horrible story that we say to our friends, and we all eat ice cream, and we all bitch and complain about them.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Call me crazy, but I want a world that doesn't do that. I want a world that centers agency and humanity of human beings and says, wow, yeah, I don't want that.
I don't want to be manipulated, so that means I don't want to manipulate others. It has to be both ways.
And it has to be that if it's good for Trey to want and it's good for Lauren to want, those wants are not always going to align.
No.
So then we can negotiate in the third domain. Then we can say, okay, you want to do this today. I want to do that today. How can we make sure you get what you want and Lauren gets what she wants? Maybe they don't happen on the same day.
True. It's going to be a lot harder conversation, say, if you want to involve like other people.
Other people.
Or if you want to go fuck somebody else. It's a little bit different than like, hey, I'd like to go to dinner here.
Yeah. It might be, I don't want that.
Or if you start obsessing over something, or if you're craving lust, or if you're not getting laid on a regular basis. I mean, these are the hardest conversations to have in relationships when it comes to eroticism and intimacy. I think they're two very different things, too.
Yeah.
You can have a lot of sex without being intimate.
Yeah.
Intimacy is vulnerability, and a lot of the times it actually has nothing to do with sex. It has to do with asking for what you want, or actually listening to what someone else wants and then not going to older patterns of, for me, it's defensiveness, boundaries, hyper individualism, avoidance, anger. I point rage at myself. I don't point it at anybody else. I know how devastating pointing it at other people can be, from what I saw my mother do over and over again, lose friends and family members and alienate herself because rage came out. And it's one thing, actually, it's pretty universally untolerated. Unless, you have resources or you're the boss or some bullshit like that. She wasn't. She wasn't the boss of anything. So, yeah, what we're talking about, I think, is the hardest thing.
If you want to work with someone, go to sexedforyou.com/free consult. I want to talk about the phrase we often hear from lots of people of, yeah, he has commitment issues.
He might just not want to be committed to you.
He might not be ready for a commitment yet.
He might just not be ready for a commitment to you.
He might not have done his work.
That's fair.
He might
most men
literally
haven't.
have some growing up to do.
Yeah, most men haven't, especially if they're like hot and tall. They get away with a lot of shit.
I tell Trey this all the time.
Yeah.
He's like, babe, why didn't all these men come up to you? And I'm like, the really hot ones, they haven't had to do diddly squat.
Yeah.
Diddly squat. They just got things handed to them. Pretty privilege. I see a thing happen in a lot of women, which is they've seen women in their lives, moms, aunts, grandmothers, do a lot of caretaking for men. And so they'll think, I'll just care for you. Like, partner with me. I'll take such good care of you. Like, I will take care of you. I'm like, honey girl, that is not your job. In fact, caretaking is the greatest anti-aphrodisiac. Caregiving, mutual caregiving inside of healthy individualistic partnership, whoo, hot. You care for me, I care for you. When the podcast didn't happen, right? Like the recording didn't happen. I hope I provided care for you by not getting angry at you. Like that was an act of caring. But women, please listen to me. You do not need to grow him up. You do not need to make him commit to you. You do not need to be enough more than you are in order to take such great care of him that he commits to you because you emulate his fucking mother. And I'm so tired of it. I'm like, women, chill the fuck out. Let the men just figure it out. Fuck up. Trey fucked up when he cheated on this girlfriend. And so then he, did a swing to the other side of the pendulum and was like, oh, I'm just going to date all these women and be hyper independent. Then just kept doing work on himself, kept growing, kept becoming, kept growing, kept becoming, kept listening, growing, getting mentored, yada, yada. And then we found each other. We would not have the same relationship if you had needed a mommy.
Yeah, the growing didn't stop when we found each other. It accelerated.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then I was like, oh, I really got to step my fucking game up.
We had that conversation just last week before.
Yeah.
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 I shared some things that were not nice. I was not nice.
Yeah, it was out of hurt. It was out of,
it was not
Yeah,
nice.
Lauren
I ouched Trey big
Yeah.
time. This is the unrecorded podcast that you guys didn't get to hear last week. But what was phenomenal is that you said, these are ouches. Please don't ever say things like this again.
Great.
You gave me 2 things. And then you said, and yet one of those was based in something that you've been actually sharing with me for a while. I'm going to work on that. And also, I have realized that I'm partnered to a wild and powerful woman. And I will keep up with her.
Yeah, I don't want to diminish that. I actually want to encourage more of it.
You like called me on my shit. Like, do not treat me like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, heard. If someone treats you like that and I'm the person, you need to go. Because you should never be spoken to in that way. They were just like cutting remarks. Criticisms were not mine to say. But in the same breath, you could say, and I see where some of this was coming from. And that you want to go. You want to be. You want to become. And I'm not going to hold you back from that.
Mm-hmm. And you want a partner that can keep up.
Yeah. And I would like it to be you specifically. Yeah. It was wild. Yeah.
That's our relationship, though, where those are my requirements. Like, truly dynamic women that want to achieve lots and lots and lots. That was like part of this is what I want, like, in a partner, like a true equal in a partner. That may not be for everyone. That's okay.
That just made me think again. What? I mean, you just said part of your wants, right? And like, when I found this, I sent you a voice memo yesterday. Because what I think was so fascinating about one of my experiences with being left wanting, being confused as to why a person had had my body but didn't want more, was to say, this is what I really want. I can't find it right now, so I'm going to trust that I'm not to find it specifically. But it was just, I want. And it's so, now we have the phrase, it's so good to want. And never have I understood how incredibly important it is to be able to say what we want to another before we intertwine our bodies, before there's the lovely oxytocin surge post-orgasm in a sexual encounter. Because y'all, having a wild casual sex encounter that is a standalone experience is juicy and wonderful, and everyone deserves it. And if you have a craving for partnership, you deserve that too. If you have a craving to have sex with a different person every night of the week, you deserve that too. Do I think that sometimes we are using sex to cope with a life that we're not happy in? Fuck yes, I do. Yes. Do I think that Trey in that instance used sex as an out for his relationship? Yes, I do. In my slut era, was I using sex to get connection that I was so starving for? Yes. There's no shame in doing these things. But to point the finger at somebody else, to say, you're the cause for my pain, is an interesting choice. Might they be a player in our story? Might they be a contributor to our pain? Yeah. Yeah. And yet
we're in charge of us.
We are. Yeah. And we are subconsciously drawn to these people who fulfill a certain narrative we have of ourselves. And if we, because of attachment, feel too scared to put out into the universe what it is that we really want, or put out to a potential sexual partner what it is that we really want, that's our work to do. But name calling and accusing others for the roles they played in the story we wrote isn't right. Isn't good, isn't juicy. They have work to do. Other people do too. I'm not saying that men who take women out and wine them and dine them and then fuck them and then never call them again are like off the hook. No, they have work to do. They do. So does the woman who accepts that. Fine. We all got work. But to continue to be victims in our own narratives is fascinating to me. And getting clear on what we want. I loved what you said earlier about, creating containers. And I wanted to say to the audience that if that's something you're interested in working on, that is something I love to do, to help individuals who are interested in a season of casual sex really define that for themselves, tool them up to be able to say that to others too, to be able to say, let's create this vessel together, this little temporary space for us to play erotically, and then fucking close it. What are our communication boundaries outside of this sexy space? Do we talk before? Do we talk after? Do people know that we are sex partners? Do we not? How does that feel to you? How does that feel to me? How do we want to play inside of that space? What are our safer sex practices? There's all kinds of stuff that we can talk about that make it a juicy space to play. But you spoke of it so beautifully earlier, of the difference between a scarcity and an abundance mindset. So many of us wouldn't do that because we'd be afraid that we'd scare the other person away.
Mm-hmm. And you may.
You may. So then let's work on your solo sex practice, developing a really sexy masturbatory practice for self so that we're not all walking around starving. Michaela Boehm says before you go out on any first date with a really hot partner, you should 100% masturbate, because you should never go into a date horny. You should be able to go into a date going, do I want this? Is this more attractive than what I could have for myself at home? And I love that little trick of, you shouldn't go to the grocery store starving. And I think it's a fun hack. Is partnership the coolest thing on earth? Yeah, it is. Is it necessarily what people are ready for or wanting at all times? No. And I think in this monogamy, long-term suffering culture that we found ourselves in, right? We still worship this idea of being in relationship, right? And it's great. And it's been the best thing ever. So I don't want to shit on it. But people who are choosing not to be inside of a committed relationship right now are not lesser human beings.
Yeah, stability, security, abundance. I think that's what the sales tag is for in relationship. Ooh. You have all those things. So if you can have all those things being single, mwah, gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I'd argue it's what makes for the best partnerships too.
Yep.
Right? Because our little phrase is we choose partnership. Mm-hmm. And that involves seeing one another and saying, hey, I choose you. I see you. I choose you. And it's funny, in Christian scriptures, they talk about being unequally yoked. Mm-hmm. And that's like two cows or horses pulling the plow. And I do think it's interesting. Obviously, Christian scriptures still have a lot of trauma in my body, but I think it's an interesting analogy and visual picture, because we're at our best where we're both resourced We are highly resilient. We are in our agency, our juiciness. We feel good about ourselves, and we are pulling alongside of each other towards common goals, fun things. And then we can like look over and be like, hey, and then we keep going. There are seasons when we need to lift each other up. Again, that caregiving, when one of us is lower and we need more support from the other. And that is good. But overall, I do think that the things that we can learn in seasons of solo power, I don't even want to call it singleness because it's like inferring that you're waiting for partnership. They can be so great for partnership. Like, I tell all of my clients that the things that I learned, the way I learned to date myself and to treat myself when I was all alone, are still my responsibility now. I was talking with a client the other day about like cultivating a self-date practice. And it was like, I still do this. I am often found at our local hole in the wall, tucked away at my little space, journaling my thoughts, reading my books, talking to my bartenders. Like, this is not a Trey and Lauren thing. This is a Lauren thing. I have my Mondays usually totally alone because it's my job to take care of me. And those things enhance our partnerships. It's not our kids' jobs. The amount of clients I talk to who get their secure attachments from their children, and then we have to talk about that. It's like, no. Our children should never be made to feel that they have a responsibility for us in that way. We can be responsible to them. Mm-hmm. Just such fun, juicy stuff. And thank you for sharing the pieces that you did. I know it's never like fun to come on here and be like, these are all the things that, yeah, I wish I could go back and change. But
yeah, we could do it. No, I like talking about when I fuck up.
There was a lot of life that we both lived before we found each other.
Oh, yeah. We 35, 36, right? Mm-hmm. I was 36, you were 35.
Mm-hmm. You were my older man.
Yeah, I usually date much older women, but you'll do.
You'll do. Yeah. Thank you for the work that you did.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm thankful also for all the women that you learned from. I have such respect for each of them. And it's not lost on me that I get this version. It's not lost on me that there's probably women out there who, yeah, we're left wanting from you too, because you're fab. You're really fabulous. And there's too few men doing the work. So I'm thankful for you. And yeah, I guess moral of our story today is get clear on what you want. We hear our audience. We hear the people we talk to in casual conversation. I hear my clients. And it's hard to state what we want because it might mean rejection. It might mean losing the thing that we were hoping to gain, even if that thing is sex. So yeah. Thanks. Thanks for coming to this episode of the Partnership Podcast with Lauren and Trey, where we share lots of opinions. Please, please, please keep in mind that these are opinions. Sure, I share research and have studied this extensively, but you have a right to self-determination and informed decision-making. So take what you like, leave the rest. If you do want to work with someone on, I want to do dating differently. I want to do casual sex differently. I want to do recreational and relational sex differently. And I want to be able to state my wants in my erotic experiences. Go to sexedforyou.com/free consult. Request to have a consult with me for a good match. You and I can spend about 15 minutes chatting. I'll share what I do. You can ask questions about it. We talk about cost and money. I say it's only awkward if we don't talk about it. Yeah, but feel free to use all these resources. Like Trey was saying earlier, there's so much free shit on the internet, in podcasts, on YouTube. Learn, resource yourself. It's good to want. Bye.